So Mr. Wong had a podcast just last week, and during this podcast, he said something I find to be very interesting. So he talked about this 30-point communication range. What that is I think is research done by a university over in United Kingdom about how it is difficult to almost impossible for a person to explain to another person about a complicated subject, and geopolitics is a very complicated subject indeed, if the two person has a 30-point IQ or above gap in between. So if I have 140 IQ, it would be very difficult to impossible for me to explain my thoughts to someone who only has 100 IQ. So during the podcast, Mr. Wong said that his IQ is so high that he might as well not try to explain to his thought to anybody across the street, around the street, or anyone he met, because it's very unlikely for him to actually bump into someone who's within that 30 IQ gap compared to him. So I did some digging, and I find that the highest IQ person, which is another Chinese, a mathematician here in the United States, who claimed to have an IQ of 230. And let's assume for now that Mr. Wong has a very high IQ, let's say 200. So what he means is that it is very difficult for him to explain his thoughts regarding geopolitics, economics, and also high energy physics to people who are with IQ 170 or below, which 170 is also already incredibly high. And what he did is that over the last 10 years on his Facebook, like the Chinese version of the Facebook blogger, he spent 10 years and wrote 10 million Chinese syllables explaining how the US unipolar world works in very, very descriptions, okay? And let me just tell you what 10 million Chinese symbols represent. A Chinese Bible usually has about 2 to 3 million Chinese word symbols in it. So what he did is he wrote something equivalent to 4 Bibles, King James Bibles. And the purpose he do that is so that people who has IQ 60 or 70 below what his IQ is, which he didn't say, can also, through hard work and study, understand what he's trying to say regarding to the global economy and also the United States unipolar world and how it works. And during another podcast, it's the same podcast show, okay? But a few months before Mr. Wong made the most recent podcast, a professor of philosophy in one of the famous university in Taiwan actually came onto the show. They were talking about propagandas and how it affect the Taiwanese population when they see today's China, okay? And he made the statement. This is what he said, okay? He'd been teaching a master degree, political science or just philosophy class in the university, master degree, okay? So he said that in his class, only about 10 to 15% of the students actually have the logical analytical skill to form one's own perspective through constructive reasoning, okay? To dissect an event and actually form its own opinion on it. And 85 to 90% of the students in his class do not have that skill and can only memorize what's being taught or what's in the textbook. And you would kind of think that in a master degree philosophy class, the student probably will like to think a lot, will have higher ability to think. But even in that kind of class, only 10 to 15% of the student, according to him, has that kind of skill. So in real life, when we just meet people on the street, the likelihood of people actually able to really figure out geopolitical events